weeks we listened the Sri Lanka story of Sinhabahu. In that story, there was a man, an offspring by the name of Sinhabahu, born of a princess with her relationship with a lion. So she was a princess of Winga state. The princess of Winga state had a relationship with the lion. So in this regard, we need to get some lesson. So regarding this, according to the text, why love spring? So text say, Pobe wasani wasena pichopana hitenawa. Ewontan jayate pema opalawa yatotake. Love spring from having lived together in the previous existence. There is one reason. Another reason is love spring from doing marriage together in the previous existence. If the duration of living together is long, affection will become deeper. So it is for the previous existence, living together and doing marriage together. And in the present life also, a person may become more affectionate to another who has provided assistance. So it is for present karma. In the story, a princess had relationship with a lion, and there comes a family, the father lion and the mother princess of Winga state, and sons and daughters. So the family members were unable to leave the cave because the mouth of the cave was blocked up with a huge, massive rock. So one day the son Sayādaw removed this huge rock and left the place, carrying his mother and sister on his shoulder. On return to his den, the great lion did not see his wife and children, so the great lion felt dejected. So in this regard, we need to get the lesson according to Metta Sutta, Kule Swat Nanu Gaido, not to be greedily attached to the families. We all are visitors. We come to this world alone, and we have to leave this world alone. So Buddha gave instruction to the monks to approach the families like the moon that always arises anew. Monks must associate with the family members, devotees with a detached attitude. When the moon travels in the sky, It does not associate anyone. It is distancing. The moon does not become fond of or attached to anyone. Yet people love the moon. So why we should not to be greedily attached to the families? We have to follow the natural way. In every moment, new nama and rupa, new psychophysical process are continuously arising and dissolving, and then afresh to be again dissolved, undergoing a gradual process of continuous change. So this lesson we can get from the story of Sayādaw, Sri Lanka story. Now we'll continue the 11 advantages of Metta. Relating to the advantages of Metta, explanation given to the query put forward can be found in Milinda Pinya, Pali text of Dhamma. The question that arose was, imagine the 11 advantages of loving kindness. It has been stated that a person who is developing loving kindness will escape bodily injury, or in other words, will be immune from dangers of fire, poison, etc. However, in the story of Suina Samajadaga, mention has been made that though Bodhisattva Suvinasama was said to be always developing loving kindness, he was badly wounded and was in a state of semi-consciousness. Because of the injury caused by the poisonous arrow which was shot at him by the king Piliyaka while hunting deer to find out the truth of what he considered as strange things. Because when he saw the Suvanasama Bodhisattva, it is very strange. He was like celestial beings. So such being the case, the statement that Bodhisattva Suvanasama had been hit by the arrow must be wrong. If the statement that no harm or injury could be inflicted by a weapons on a person who was developing loving kindness. On the other hand, if the statement that Bodhisattva Suvinasama was actually hit by an arrow, then a statement that a person who is developing loving kindness becomes invulnerable must be wrong. So there are two statements. They are conflicting. Since these two statements were conflicting and were contrary to one another, King Milinda requested Venerable Nagasena to kindly clarify the two opposite views To this problematic matter in issue, Venerable Nagasena Thera explained, O noble King Milinda, it is exactly true that no weapon can hit or harm a person who is developing loving kindness. It is also true that Bodhisattva Sunasama was hit by an arrow. Though both are in fact correct, the reason for having no uh, discrepancy between the two statements is that the advantage of invulnerability is derived not because of the inherent power or quality of the person, but because of the attributes or quality of loving kindness. Although it had been stated that Bodhisattva Sunasama was developing loving kindness at the time when he was struck by the arrow, he was picking up the water pot, and it was during that brief moment of endeavor. Sunasama had a break or a lapse in the process of developing loving kindness. That is the reason why Sunasama was struck by an arrow. For example, in ancient times, soldier had an armored suit made of metal steel. When such an armor was worn in fighting as a covering in defense, no arrow or spear could pierce through it. It serves as a protection against sharp weapons. The escape from injury caused by the weapons, such as spear, arrow, or knife, is because of the faculty of the armored suit. It is not attributable to the inherent power or faculty of the man. If the suit of armor is not worn by the person, any kinds of weapons used against him would have caused an injury. In the same way, immunity from such lethal weapons should be attributed to the faculty of loving kindness and not to that of the person. So at the moment of a lapse from loving kindness development, Sunasama was struck by the arrow. And the second example, it is that a person living in a sound masonry building will not get wet by rains. This is not due to his faculty, but the inherent quality of the building itself. If the lacks shelter stays outside the building, he will be soaked in the skin. In the same way, if a person is lacking in loving kindness, any kinds of weapons could harm him at the moment of his lapse in the development of loving kindness. Just as a man who will get soaked if he were outside the building when raining. And the next example may be cited. This is what is called a medicinal tree of an angel. It is stated that a person who was holding its branch or any part of its wood would become invisible to the naked eye. It has the power of making a man invisible. There is every likelihood that people nowadays may find it difficult to believe such a miracle. However, we have made a mention of it according to what is found in the text Milenda Piña. Invisibility is the power of this medicinal tree of an angel and not of the man. The main significance which we want to stress is to constantly develop loving kindness if you want to protect yourself from any kinds of danger. Relating to number 7 of the 11 advantages that can be accrued from loving kindness in connection with the invulnerability from fire, poison, and knife, etc., nothing more is required to be said. Regarding number 8 advantage, speedily becomes the mind serene. Number 9 advantage, facial complexion is bright and sparkling with joy. And number 10 advantage, without gloom and anxiety at the time of death, it does not appear necessary to be repeated. What now remains to be said is connected with number 11 advantage, verily destined to become a Brahma, the last of the advantages. These advantages is clearly mentioned in the Pali text under the subheading Second Metta Sutta, Dutiya Metta Sutta. The method of Vipassana contemplation to be jointly practiced has been shown. So this will again be clarified. So how to contemplate? According to Second Metta Sutta, Dutiya Metta Sutta. Mittasa Katena Chittasa Paritva Viharati etc. That means a yogi who has attained Mittajana while being absorbed in that Mittajana Rupa, materiality, Vedana, feeling, Sinya, Sankhara, Vijnana are only present at that moment. It means to say that there is an absence of atta, there is an absence of self at that brief moment. That rupa, materiality, vedana, feelings, sinya, sankara, vijnana, dhamma are looked upon as impermanent and as suffering, and are similar to a disease that had, and like a tumorous growth, etc. So this Pali text describes the manner of contemplating vipassana after arising from the state of jhana. What is contemplated is on rupa and vedana, etc. When they occur at the moment of his absorption in jhana, it is something which is similar to what the vipassana yogi are contemplating and noting as seeing, hearing, or imagining. After the arising consciousness of what is seen, heard, or imagined. At the time when the jhanic mind occurs, rupa or metta, on which the jhanic mind depends, is present. It is extremely pure, refined, and good by the power of jhana. As these good sensations have pervaded the whole body, yoga would feel very comfortable and nice. It is similar to the characteristics of consciousness or knowledge which occurs at the moment of achieving Udiyavya Jnana, the knowledge of rise and fall. This rupa on which reliance is made, and rupa material elements or sense objects which have taken place by virtue or jhana are mentioned in Pali text as Yadeva Rupakata. Vedana, etc., which occur hand in hand simultaneously and in combination with the jhanic mind, have been mentioned as Vedanakata, Sinyakata, and Sankarakata in the Pali text. The jhanic mind is, however, described as Vijnanakata. This is how a yogi who has attained jhana contemplates on the jhanic mind, etc. This resembles the manner of contemplating and noting the arising consciousness of imagination as imagining when it occurs by the vipassana yogis. How awareness and perception is gained by insight knowledge through uh, contemplation, as has been stated, is shown as anicca, etc., totaling 11 kinds. A yogi who is endowed with special or deeper knowledge can grasp all the 11 characteristics. But a yogi who is lacking in knowledge cannot realize all 11 characteristics. He or she may know only a few. However, the most significant point is to know the true characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. It is most significant point. So Buddha has preached, lay emphasis on these three kinds, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. If these three marks are truly perceived and known, the rest of the eight can be also understood. For instance, palokato, easily destructible. It carries the same sense as nature, impermanence, or not lasting. And if you observe the five aggregates, you understand. And also it is similar to poisonous disease or a chronic malignant tumor, a sharp pointed stump that has struck or pierced through, and a gut that is not free from suffering. The five aggregates can bring demerits. And the five conditions which are said to be similar to illness are all dukkha, all suffering. Parato, it resembles an alien or stranger. Sonya, it is devoid of atta, self, a being or individuality. So these two also convey the same meaning as anatta, not self, or ungovernable. That is why we have now explained the manner by which the nature of anicca, dukkha, anatta uh, can can be realized. And dukkha, suffering. Dukkha in Pali have more meanings than what appears on the surface. Dukkha means suffering, something difficult to endure, oppression. According to the Buddha's definition, whatever is impermanent is suffering. Why should something impermanent be called suffering? Sometimes we enjoy good food, good companionship. We enjoy many things. Are those things dukkha, suffering? When you are enjoying good food, according to the Lord Buddha, according to the teaching, indeed, you are suffering. Why are such seemingly harmless activities called suffering? Dukkha. We must understand the characteristic of suffering. The commentary gives 3 reasons why the 5 aggregates of clinging are called suffering. The first reason is that 5 aggregates of clinging are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. We must keep firmly in mind that constant operation by rise and fall is the characteristic of dukkha. If we want to know whether or not something is dukkha, try to see whether it rises and falls. If it does, it has to be oppressed by the rising and falling, and that oppression is what dukkha means. So all 5 aggregates, including the 5 aggregates of clinging, are called dukkha because they are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. You look at everything in the world and you will see that everything is oppressed by rise and fall. And that rise and fall also are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. Can we find a single moment when there is no rise and fall? Can we find a single moment when the process of rise and fall stops? From the moment we take conception, this rise and fall begins to oppress us, and it goes on and on and on throughout our life. There is not a single moment when we are free from rise and fall. There is always rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. So when yogis see things during meditation, he or she note them as rising and falling, one after another, maybe hundreds of objects. Then yogi get the impression that everything is oppressed by rising and falling. This rising and falling is a kind of oppression. Falling means destruction, which is a kind of oppression, and rising is a precursor to falling. It rises so that it can fall, and falling is also a kind of oppression. Rising and falling oppress the 5 aggregates every moment, creating continuous oppression. This constant oppression by rise and fall is a characteristic of dukkha. If yogi can understand dukkha in this way, he or she can accept the fact that enjoying delicious food is dukkha. Whatever we are enjoying is dukkha because there is nothing that is not dukkha. And we can accept the teaching of the Buddha that the five aggregates of clinging are suffering. When explaining the first noble truth in the first sermon, Buddha said at the end, Pinjupadana Kanda Dukkha, the five aggregates of clinging are suffering, which means in brief that everything in the world is suffering. If you understand this to mean the continuous oppression by rise and fall, you can easily accept the truthfulness of the Buddha's explanation. If you don't understand it, you may want to argue about the Buddha's teaching and talk about some kinds of happiness, enjoyment, and so forth. But this, we want you to understand and to hold firmly in mind the meaning of dukkha is constant oppression by rise and fall. So we should attend to the five aggregates of clinging as impermanent and nature. This means that a yogi must practice meditation so that he or she see the five aggregates of clinging as impermanent. Then he or she must see them as suffering. So now he or she must see them as a disease. Rogato. Roga. The yogi who is virtuous and instructed must see the aggregates of clinging as a chronic disease. A person who has a chronic disease such as diabetes, asthma, or high blood pressure is not free. He or she cannot eat what he or she likes but must take medicine and avoid eating food that would aggravate his or her condition. So he must always be careful. The disease may increase and at times decrease, but he or she is never in control. No matter how careful he or she is, the disease is stay there. However much attention and care is given to a chronic disease, it is never cured. In the same way, however much we find fault with the five aggregates, we still have them and need to attend to them. We must avoid food that is unsuitable for our body. We must avoid living in an unsuitable climate for our body. And we need to take care of a host of other things. just because of the five aggregates. So these aggregates can be viewed as a chronic disease, roga. And the yogi who is virtuous and instructed also must see the five aggregates are clinging as a tumor or a soul. When the person has the tumor or sore that oozes blood and pus and causes a lot of pain, he must care for it with medication. And the five aggregates are like a tumor. Many repulsive things ooze out, such as greed, hatred, delusion, pride, envy, jealousy, etc. They ooze out of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. They are always oozing out. When we see something beautiful, what oozes out of our eyes? Greed or attachment. And if we see something we don't like, anger oozes out of our eyes. Because these things are always oozing out of the five aggregates, they are like tumors or so. That is Ganda in Pali. And the yogi must also see the five aggregates are clinging as a dot, that is sunlight. When a dot penetrates a body, it causes sharp pain whenever you touch the spot. In the same way, the five aggregates gives us suffering of different kinds. Because we have eyes, we have to suffer the objects we don't want to see. Because we have ears, we have to suffer the sounds we don't like to hear. They are like dust in our flesh. And once a dust gets into the flesh, it is not easily removed. So the five aggregates are to be viewed as a dot causing suffering, and the aggregates are clinging are to be seen as misery. And the five aggregates are also to be viewed as akusala. The original Pali was is aga, A-G-H-A, aga, that is akusala. And in one commentary, it is explained as dukkha. If we take this word to mean dukkha, it would be the same as the word suffering. But the Visuddhimagga explains it differently. It describes aga as being censurable, deserving or sensual, like akusala karma, that is censured by noble beings and giving painful results. And the five aggregates are censurable because they give us pain, suffering, and bad results, so they are to be viewed as akusala. And also five aggregates are to be seen as abada, that is affliction, which here means occasional sickness such as cold, indigestion, diarrhea, or fever. When you are sick for a few days and unable to eat or to do what you like, you may suffer because of this affliction, abada. Even though it is an occasional sickness, it can afflict you with suffering. In the same way, the five aggregates are like occasional sickness. Since we are composed of the five aggregates, we cannot do what we like. We have to look after them, protect them, and avoid what is unsuitable for them. So a yogi is instructed to see these five aggregates of clinging as affliction or occasional sickness, abada in Pali. So now seven aspects of the aggregates. See the aggregates as impermanent, as suffering, as disease, as juma, as death, as misery, and as affliction. All of these seven are aspects of being dukkha, suffering. So the five aggregates can be seen as dukkha or in terms of these seven individual aspects. In seeing them as a disease, as a tumor, and so on, we are seeing the dukkha aspect of the five aggregates. And the next aspect is parato, para, alien. A person who is an alien is not in our power because he owes allegiance to another country. He is an outsider and we have no authority over him. So we refer to him as alien. And the five aggregates. Five aggregates must be regarded as alien, not belonging to us, as some things we cannot control. This alien aspect belongs to another, non-self, and now the another nature of things we need to observe the five aggregates. So commentary mentioned that anicca vedittabha. Anicca must be known, nature must be understood. Aniccata vedittabha, the characteristics of anicca must be known as impermanent. So vipassana knowledge, which contemplates and knows that it is impermanent or it is not lasting, should be understood. And it has been expounded that what is anicca? Aniccanti khanda pinjaka. And that is what is impermanence called anicca is nothing but the aggregates of five khandas. So we need to remember the five khandas as anicca, five khandas, five aggregates as impermanence. These five aggregates, which are transient by nature, are rupas and namas, matter and mind, which have existed at the moment of the occurrence of the jhanic mind. These are mentioned in the Pali text as Rupagata, Vedanagata, etc. This is a Dharma which should be correctly and vividly known as impermanence. When contemplation is carried on after arising from jhana, it is similar to what is clearly known by the Vipassana yogi with personal insight knowledge of the mind and matter at the moment of seeing, hearing, and imagining. In the course of their contemplation and noting as seeing, hearing, imagining with awareness. And nature, impermanence, possessing the characteristics of impermanence, realized through contemplation and noting, may be explained in this way. Hotwa abhavakaro anicca. Originally, what has not yet existed before has occurred and then suddenly disappear and vanish. This transient nature is to be noted and understood as the characteristics of a nature. So we need to remember vanishing after occurrence is the characteristics of a nature. So three characteristics are important. So it is for Vipassana mentioned in Dutiya Metta Sutta. So we have to stop our discourse for today. We'll continue next week by practicing Metta Bhavana, by noting, rising, falling, sitting, touching, standing, walking, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, etc. continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future. Sadhu.